In this video, we're going to talk about the main characters in this book, Zade and Adeline, who they are and how they go from strangers to proximity, how they come in contact, what happens before they even meet. It's relevant, I promise. And also Grayson, whose role raises some interesting questions about how this story is constructed. This discussion contains major spoilers for Haunting Adeline, including plot developments and a few brief excerpts from the novel. So if you do not want to be spoiled, do not watch this video. If you want to read it but don't mind the spoilers, or if you want to learn more about it before reading it, or if you have read it and want to discuss it with me, carry on. That being said, this isn't meant to be a scene-by-scene summary. I'm deliberately leaving out large parts of the novel, including entire subplots. My goal isn't to replace the reading experience, but just to analyze the ideas that stood out to me. If you feel like I've missed considering something essential, though, feel free to draw my attention to it. With that out of the way, let's see who Adeline and Zade are, and Grayson. So we meet Adeline in Parsons Manor, a house that's supposed to feel unsettling. It's haunted, it's isolated, and it has this heavy atmosphere around it, and you'd expect it to make her feel uncomfortable, but actually she enjoys the thrill. There's fear there, but it's sort of mixed with excitement and curiosity from her part. So let's write it down. Creepy house and thrill seeker. So she's going against her mother's wishes living in that house, and she was much closer to her grandparents, particularly with her grandmother, Nana, and that's kind of like the emotional anchor of Adeline's character, and one of the reasons why Parsons Manor means more to her than just a creepy old house. Then we see Adeline at a book signing where she's established already as a successful author. So let's write it down. That she's a writer. One thing that didn't particularly work for me, though, is that she keeps feeling as someone is staring at her. Now, this is literally, she's at a public event where dozens of people are already staring at her. So personally, I found it kind of difficult to separate that uneasy feeling from a very normal attention that she would be receiving already. So she feels like someone's watching her, and we get the first description of Zade's eyes. And I have to say that giving a main character one or two memorable features was a smart move from the author and makes it easier to picture that as the story goes on. So he has an eye that is so dark and bottomless it feels like staring into a well, and the other eyes and light that's nearly white, reminding me of Husky's eyes, and that he has also a scar. So let's write this down, that he has, I guess, beautiful eyes. This is the first thing that we learn about Zade. Then we see Adeline hanging out with her best friend Dea. I'm gonna put her right here. Talking about her love life, and we learn that she knows that she's attractive and that her love life could use more action, and basically Dea encourages her to contact Grayson. And you'll see in a minute why he's relevant. What I found interesting is that Grayson is actually introduced before Zade properly is. We already know that someone is watching Adeline from the shadows, but as far as named male character go, Grayson gets there first. We don't know who he is, only that him and Adeline known each other previously, and we literally just know that he is a complete and utter douchebag, but that his physique has some redeeming qualities, which is what Adeline wants or needs right now. So let's write this down. We don't really know who he is, except that he is a hot. And he's kind of a douchebag. Now, do I think that we need to have a deep background character story on each character? No. The book lets us figure out by watching how he behaves. And I think that's a much stronger way of introducing a character. Rather than telling us what kind of person he is, it lets us decide for ourselves. Grayson arrives at Adeline's house responding to her invitation, expecting the evening to become intimate almost immediately. Also, this internally I cringe, externally I cringe. I enjoyed this quite a lot because it lightens the tone without breaking it. It injects a bit of humor into what is otherwise a fairly tense situation. They start the process of taking their clothes off, but they're interrupted by a loud banging coming from the main door. Adeline is visibly uneasy, while Grayson immediately expects her to answer the door and deal with the situation herself. It's a small interaction, but I think it tells us quite a lot about Grayson. After she comes back upstairs, she tells him that she's no longer in the mood. She's genuinely shaken by what happened at the door, understandably so, but Grayson doesn't really seem to care about why she's uncomfortable. So basically, she's coming back into the room, and Grayson is completely disrobed. So let's write this down. Grayson. Ta-da. So instead, he actually reacts to her changing her mood with frustration. He gets dressed, he storms towards the exit, accuses her of leading him on, and before leaving, he punches a hole in the drywall. I think this moment is super important because, yes, it does tell us a lot about Grayson, but it also tells us something about Adeline. So let's write this down. I'm gonna write that he punches the wall. Here I want you to remember her reaction to it. She's shocked by his outburst. This is going to become very relevant later in the story, and this is what I meant by the Grayson question. I don't think Grayson is important as a character on his own, but I think that he somehow serves as contrast. Not necessarily contrast to Zade, but contrast as what is important. He exists because I think that he's someone who Adeline has a casual relationship with. We see that he is selfish, he becomes angry when things don't go his way, and he fails to protect her. And also, critically, this last point, he's violent, and violence bothers Adeline. And I think that this is super important, so let's write it down. So we're going to do this. Violence bothers Adeline. And this is huge because we literally flip the page and we meet Zade. And one of the very first things that Zade tells us is, I really effing enjoy hurting people. And the novel doesn't ease us into this slowly. It immediately shows us him interrogating, tormenting, unaliving, and how do I say this? Disassembling someone. So this is the first impression of Zade, other than, oh, he has beautiful eyes, or interesting eyes, I suppose. We learn that he is capable of extraordinary violence and that he enjoys doing it. Whatever explanation might come later, this is still an incredibly difficult first impression to overcome. We do learn that the person that he is tormenting belonged to a trafficking ring, which makes things more morally complicated. Zade isn't hurting and hunting down random people, so I think that the novel kind of infuses in us the idea that they sort of deserve it. But even so, Zade is definitely operating entirely outside of the law. Notice that he's not gathering evidence or working with the police because these methods are illegal. You're not allowed to torture people as a police officer. So he's basically acting as investigator, judge, jury, and executioner all at once by himself. And this does make me wonder, does Zade believe that the legal system in the story isn't capable of dealing with crimes like trafficking? I mean, to be fair, these investigations are notoriously difficult. Victims are terrified, powerful people can be involved, and evidence could be scarce. The cases can take years, and if that's the kind of world that Zade believes himself to be, I guess I could understand why he would feel that waiting for due process would be sort of like abandoning the victims. The danger is, though, that if a person appoints themselves above the law, they're accountable to only themselves, right? And not to anybody else. So I don't even know what to write here based on all of this. Let's just say... And the question mark is me being nice. I barely had the time to process any of that before the novel has already moved on. It's 5 in the afternoon and we're told that Zade wants a burger. I'm sorry for pausing, it was just shocking. He's walking through an ordinary city surrounded by ordinary people. Nobody has the slightest idea of what he has just done. I found that so creepy. The novel gives the reader no time to process what just happened, to sit with the violence before carrying us straight into the next scene. That momentum matters because this is where Zade and Adeline see each other for the very first time. He notices a photograph advertising her book signing, walks inside, and here is where the language changes quite a lot. He says that he has found the meaning of life, her name is fit for a goddess. In just a few moments, he's basically defining her as his new obsession. So let's write this down. Obsessed with Adeline. And then here comes a sentence that, for me, I feel like it defines the whole novel. This one: all I want to do is to break her, shatter her into pieces, and then arrange those pieces to fit against my own. I don't care if they don't fit. I'll effing make them. Then right after this, he admits that he already knows he's about to cross lines that he'll never come back from. This is what makes this passage so disturbing. Zade understands exactly what he's thinking. He understands that there are boundaries, he just decides that they don't matter. That brings us to the image that follows them throughout the novel, the cat and mouse thing, that's why it's called the cat and mouse duet. And it is this one. I just found myself a little mouse, and I won't stop until I've trapped her. So let's write this down, because this is also super important. Now, what he says, if you're taking it on its own, it could be considered playful. It could suggest teasing, pursuit, a kind of dominant and submissive game between two people who are both choosing to participate, right? But we are in a different context. We have just seen what this man does to people he considers prey. We have seen how comfortable he is with hunting, hurting, and taking complete control of people that he could consider prey. So when he immediately turns around and describes Adeline as his little mouse, I am not hearing romance. Instead, all alarms are blaring in my head. And I don't know if H.D. Carlton intended for those two scenes to echo each other, but I couldn't separate them. I think that this is what fascinates me the most. Because the novel spent pages teaching me how to fear this man, then pretty much without warning, just gives him a romantic awakening. His feelings towards Adeline are written with wonder and destiny and overwhelming desire. The language that H.D. Carlton uses here invites us to experience the intensity of his attraction at the very moment that we're still processing the brutality of his actions. Which leaves me with one question. Are we invited to see Zade as desirable, despite everything that we've just watched him do? Once the story moves beyond his internal thoughts and he begins acting on his obsession, we'll see what kind of person he actually is towards Adeline. And then we can answer the most important question yet. Can someone be both a predator and a protector? We'll get into that in the next video. Thank you for watching.